And for more on the markets, I'm joined in our studios by Aaron Smith of Superfund Financial. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. Week after week, we've been seeing major developments from governments and central banks. Do you think by guaranteeing deposits, by partly nationalizing major financial institutions, this could be the turning point of the financial storm?
Good morning, Rico. Well, we've seen a lot of activity by central banks today. Holland stepping in and injecting cash into ING. And central banks around the world, particularly in the West, seem to be throwing around tens and even hundreds of billions of dollars. And the question is, where does this money really come from? If you go back to the Great Depression, there was over 9,000 banks that were insolvent during that era. So I'm just wondering if the central banks are prepared to handle that sort of downward pressure or that sort of selling pressure.
Do you think that they're prepared?
Well, they're taking necessary steps, but the problem is a major systemic issue, which is the borrowing that we've seen. All individual investors, corporations, as well as governments, are addicted to OPM, other people's money. And that is the big problem, that consumers are encouraged to spend money that they don't have. So this is the real issue that has to change going forward.
So it's a change in mindset, it's a change in the overall structure. Do you think that this will definitely shift over the next few years? Are we likely to see indeed a reform in the financial system?
Well, there needs to be a major overhaul. I think the sad news is that politicians tend to pick out issues like short sellers, hedge funds, executive pay, all these sort of priorities or agendas that they have that do not relate to the actual crisis at hand. So I would hope that regulators worldwide would come together in this summit that President Sarkozy and President Bush have talked about to genuinely reform the system and stop all this borrowing that's sort of a nonsense.
So there really has to be the political will to move this forward.
I think the political will is there, and there's going to be some major changes. But the biggest question for investors is where to put your money now to be safe. And most investors might think that it's a good time to buy stocks because it's cheap, or maybe they're sitting in cash. Both of these strategies may not be as profitable as they were in the past because institutions have to systematically deleverage. Today, there's over $455 trillion in derivatives worldwide, compared with about $35 trillion in the global stock market. So there's still a tremendous amount of leverage. And if you compare that, Rico, with the gold that exists worldwide, 170,000 tons, that's only a market cap of about $3.5 trillion.
Your company basically invests in the commodities markets. You mentioned about gold. We've seen gold last week reach $920 per ounce, and now it is below $800 per ounce. A lot of volatility in the markets. Well, it is a good investment in the volatility, but not for the faint-hearted.
This is certainly volatile. All the markets are volatile in this environment, but we think it's a great opportunity at Superfund to buy gold for the long run, because over the next 2 to 3 years, gold could double in price and go to $1,500 to as much as $2,000 per ounce. The reason why is because the biggest bubble in the world today is in the US dollar. The US dollar has risen so much in the past few weeks and months, but the spending and the inflation are issues that are not going away. So therefore, investors should have a safe haven, which is gold.
So Aaron, briefly before we let you go, what is your call on precious metals? Or precious metals, you like gold. What about base metals and oil?
Well, Superfund is still short on base metals. We have no position on energies right now like oil because it's just too volatile for us. It's better to just stay out of those positions. We closed our long oil positions a long time ago. So that's basically how we would be positioned today.
All right. Aaron Smith from Superfund Financial in Singapore, thank you so much for insights.